Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today we're checking out the closest game to Escape from Tarkov that is possible to play on mobile, Arena Breakout, who I would like to thank for sponsoring this video, because if you're anything like me, you're probably not that experienced with mobile games, especially in the FPS genre. This game is free to play, and it's still reasonably early in its development cycle, as it's just about to start a new session of the closed beta on the 17th of February since the last one finished on the 23rd of December at the end of last year. Of course, there will be a link in the description where you can get access to it if you want to give it a try. When you're not at your PC and want something interesting to get immersed in, this game is probably the closest experience that you can get to Tarkov on the market right now. We can learn a lot from playing other extraction shooter games, and Arena Breakout mirrors Tarkov in many of the fundamental ways that we've come to know and love from a tactical game of this type, with a similar player inventory system, modular health, weapons modding, looting, and extraction mechanics. In fact, it's amazing that the realistic extraction format actually works on mobile at all, given the complexity of the keybinds that we're used to in similar PC titles. Breakout has clearly had a lot of work put into it to match the functionality that we get on PC, and once you get to grips with the controls, we can run, crouch, prone, ADS, reload, check magazine, and even lean all on screen. You can customize the entire control set, from the positions of the buttons to their size and their transparency, so if something feels a little bit awkward, you can literally just change it in the settings menu. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting it to be so flexible. My biggest tip to those who've never played a mobile FPS is to set up your shooting hands so that you have either two fingers or finger and thumb directly on the screen. Trying to use just your thumbs on both sides like I did at the beginning, while fine on the left hand side for movement, is problematic for shooting, because you need to aim by dragging on the screen and fire by tapping on the screen, so only using your thumb means that you can't actually aim when firing your gun, which, as you can imagine, is a bit of a problem. On the flip side, the on-screen joystick for movement works like a controller would, so it's actually superior to the keyboard, doing away with the need for a variable walk speed control, as this is done through moving the virtual joystick more or less to get faster and slower speeds, which is pretty cool. Now, unlike Tarkov, Arena Breakout actually comes with a tutorial to explain how its systems work, how to use basic items, pack magazines, buy weapons and gear, and even helps you play through your first raid with an AI companion who takes you from the spawn point to the extract. Many of us in the community have been saying for a long time that some of these elements Tarkov itself could do with very badly to help new players get into the game, so in Breakout the learning curve is shortened quite a bit with these features. Something I found especially interesting about the inventory and looting system after using it for a little bit is how the PC UI hasn't just been copy-pasted across, but is designed specifically for mobile, as you would hope, which means that some elements can actually work better than on PC. Because you can use both left and right hands in the inventory screen, this means you can move stuff from enemies onto your player and vice versa a little bit more easily than you can with the mouse. You can even swap one item for another, a relatively basic feature missing from Tarkov since the dawn of time. We have a familiar trader's screen, although many are locked at the beginning of the game, and you can only buy and get quests from certain traders until you level up more. We have Joel at the start, who's kind of like our Tarkov Prapor, Avita who sells meds, and Dick Vincent who both buys and sells, as well as having higher level items up for barters that refresh on a timer. Many of the items that can be purchased from the traders outside of the starter basics are locked to levels as well. This is typically how Arena Breakout manages its progression system through levels directly. Some of these quests will look relatively familiar, such as kill 2 enemies and extract with a primary weapon, or visit certain locations and successfully extract. There are a bunch of different maps to play on, of which more are being added over time, and interestingly they are locked to levels as well, so to progress to other maps you have to begin on the starter map, which is Farmland, and then progress through to Valley at level 8 and onto Northridge at level 11. Each map has a corresponding in-game map that you can look at from the menu, with layouts and callouts already marked onto it, and in-game you can mark extractions and other locations directly as well, which helps figure out where you need to go without using a wiki. I know, right? The game actually tells you how to leave without going to a third-party website. For a game that you'll likely play a little bit more casually, this really is a must though. So before entering a raid, we have a classic choice that sticks strictly to the Tarkov format, Tactical Ops or Covert Ops, which for us Tarkov players is PMC versus Scav. The mechanics here are practically the same. As Tactical Ops, you enter into the raid, bring in gear that will be lost on death, and try to extract with as much loot as you can, completing missions and preferably both. With Covert Ops, you enter as a militant with free random gear, and you'll get to keep the items that you extract with for your main character. Once in raid, the health system again is very similar to what we are used to. Health kits replenish lost HP on limbs that are damaged, but surgical kits are required to bring black limbs back online. To mitigate the negative effects of limbs that you're unable to repair or don't have time to, painkillers can be used for a temporary fix, which allows you to walk normally again and remove the pain effect on screen, but after a certain time these run out. We also have the classic hunger and thirst systems as well, which you have to pay attention to if you're playing multiple raids in a row. None of this should be a surprise for seasoned Tarkov players, and it's pretty cool to have a relatively straightforward transition between the two games on these systems. For the items that you manage to extract with out of a raid, there is also a player marketplace, much like the flea market of old. There are some good quality of life features here, such as if you are trying to buy an item from the market, but it's cheaper on one of the traders that you have access to, the game actually tells you so that you don't end up wasting money. This plays hand in hand with the extensive modding system. Now this has over 700 parts to choose from and 10 mod slots, which is impressive for where the game is in its development so far, and opens up after level 5. Not many other games even attempt to follow in Tarkov's footsteps with the complexity of the modding system, but in Arena Breakout you can also create and customize your own builds depending on the specifications that you require for your missions, just like in the base game of Tarkov itself. Inside the modding screen, the weapons are organised into different category types, with regular assault rifles and SMGs first, which are the most likely weapons that you'll encounter to begin with. In order to mod a gun in the builder, you'll need to get the weapon first, which is kind of similar to the Tarkov system, and all the mods are visible at the bottom of the screen in a linear kind of way. You can just keep chaining these parts to end up with something that we recognise from Tarkov, using the equivalent of a Bastion cover called the AKRC receiver here, the compact base and an ACOG on the top. This ends up with something that looks very similar to the Tarkov modding system. Something interesting that I noted about the gunsmithing in Arena Breakout in particular is that the vertical and horizontal recoil stats seem to be recoil control statistics as opposed to actual recoil, which means that as you add mods, the numbers in fact go up, which is the other way round to how it works in Tarkov. Clearly we have gone into great detail with the Tarkov recoil system, so exactly how much these numbers affect the weapons that you can make, I'm not 100% sure at this point, but it does feel funny at first to see the recoil numbers increasing when you add more mods. Ergonomics is normal though and just goes up as you make better attachments. There is a meme mag that I spotted here, which is a 100 round AK non-drum, which is basically like a boomerang or something and curves all the way around to the handguard, which is pretty funny. In terms of performance, now I do have to say that I was surprised how well Arena Breakout runs, because my phone is an ancient Samsung Galaxy S7, which is really outdated these days and unfortunately isn't actually compatible with the max graphics settings. It still plays well and looks decent even at the performance end, but if you have a somewhat up-to-date phone, the game actually looks insanely nice. Also, you have to remember that the pixel density is completely different on a smartphone screen versus blowing it up for the YouTube video like I have done here in the recording, so even with the graphics settings that I have, you can't really see some elements, for example the anti-aliasing effects like you can on the big screen. So Arena Breakout is still in its closed beta testing cycle, which as I said at the start is reopening globally on the 17th of February. You'll be able to find the game on the Google Play Store in various countries around the world, and can click on the link in the description to download the game too, but I do think it's worth checking out just for pure interest's sake if nothing else, and to see another developer's take on the genre that we know and love. As it's currently subject to ongoing and active development, the dev team are going to be adding more content in the future with extra characters, new weapons, and even more mods as time goes on. With Streets of Tarkov requiring a decent portion of the player base to contemplate upgrading their machines to simply play it, the fact that Arena Breakout is free, and you probably have a device that plays it well already, is a nice bonus. There's no need to take out a second mortgage for a supercomputer to give it a go. I have only played a small amount of the Battle Royale mobile shooters in the past, specifically PUBG Mobile, but the problem with these games is that you're in it for the long haul when you start a session, which at least for me personally isn't really compatible with the shorter play sessions that I typically have with a mobile device. The beauty of the extraction shooter format, much like Tarkov itself, is the ability to decide what kind of raid you're looking to have before you start queuing. In this way, you're not stuck for the best part of an hour trying to finish a game, but can dip in and out, getting a few kills and extracting with some loot to progress your character bit by bit as you have the time to spare. This is actually the reason that I got so interested in Tarkov in the first place. When I had a bunch of time to commit, I could go in geared for difficult missions, and when I didn't, I could just dip in for a quick factory raid. This lends itself really well to the mobile format too, in my opinion. So while we're all contemplating the future direction of Tarkov, it's worth giving Breakout a go alongside, especially given these closed betas are usually only accessible for a certain amount of time, and you can play away from home. A final big thank you to Arena Breakout for asking me to check out the game and sponsoring the video. As usual, a big shout out to all my patrons, hit all the buttons if you enjoyed it, and as always, have fun in your raids.